Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to spend some time with us. This is Transparency is the New Green in Product Selection and Specification, the chapter of this webinar series that we do with our partners at Vtrue, and it's all about making it easier for architects, engineers, and contractors to find, understand, select, and specify products to construct higher performing, greener, and healthier buildings. So our topic for today is information anxiety in product transparency and how information architecture and information design is ultimately the solution for making product transparency meaningful and understandable. The premise is product transparency is causing information anxiety, which is that space between what we actually understand and what we think we should understand. And that's really where everybody, manufacturers as well as AECs, the whole virtuous cycle of folks in this community are right now with trying to create information and provide that information and be able to use it. It's really at the beginning of the mainstreaming of this process, and things are still pretty fluid, lots to still learn, lots to still do, and we're in this space of I think, innovation and opportunity, and that's really what we're going to continue to talk about today. So information architecture was a term coined by Richard Wurman, who also wrote the book Information Anxiety. The first version in 1989, and then he came out with a second version in the 90s. He then wrote the book Information Architecture in 1997 to identify practitioners who were architecting information to make data turn into information and information into knowledge. His definition of information is data in a context. Data alone, as he points out here, is often allowed to masquerade as information, but for data to be consumed, to be information and become knowledge, it needs a context, and information architecture is the process of architecting data to turn it into information. We believe here at Sustainable Minds, and this is the story we're going to talk about today, is Sustainable Minds' approach to product transparency by using information architecture and design to make this content understandable, meaningful, and useful, and ultimately actionable to help people who need to make decisions about products feel confident about making those better informed decisions. I'm here with my colleague, Michael Heinsdorf from Vtrue, who is traveling today and between flights. Hi, Michael. Are you here?
Hi, Terry. I'm here.
Great.
Good. Hello, everyone.
Great. So a quick preamble, a little bit more background for those of you who are design and information architecture history buffs. Richard Wurman is an architect. He started his career working with Louis Kahn, and in the early 60s decided that what he was really passionate about was making information understandable. And so he really brought these principles of architecture and structure to the design of information. Has credentials as long as his arm, but most people know Richard for founding the TED conferences, which he first did in 1984 and then really restarted them in the early 90s. And he was interested in looking at the nexus of technology, entertainment, and design, and how technology was being leveraged to create great entertainment, but then how design was influencing technology. And so again, this kind of virtuous loop, how design could inform technology to make information visual and visible and interactive. One of the companies that he started kind of early on in this pursuit of making information understandable was actually called the Understanding Business. And one of the product lines coming out of the Understanding Business were the Access travel guides. He was really the first to think about travel as information that needed to be consumed to improve the experience of travel, and created these Access travel guides to make the understanding of those destinations visual and accessible. And by creating standard templates and reusing those templates in a flexible way to provide content, maps, images, diagrams, we normally call some of these things information design. This is a really important period in time when people first started really understanding the power of design in making, I'm going to call this a high-performance product. I want to show you another example of a business that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. Some may not be, but I love the fact that their founding story is key to the story that they still tell, which is the founder, Joe Mansueto, understood that financial information is super important to a whole bunch of people, but for it actually to be effective, that information needed to be designed and presented in the range of media, print, online, static, interactive, actionable, in all the ways that all of the different types of people, private investors, advisors, retirement advisors, and on, that information and tools needed to be designed for those people to be able to interact and consume that information in a thoughtful, precise, and logical presentation. And today, design is really part of their legacy and core to what we do. This was content I pulled from a latter part of the page, that it, from everything from an investor form, that form that gets filled out, to the ultimate delivery of reports, is all deeply considered and part of a continuous user experience. I even like a lot that in their timeline early on, 3 critical innovations in the evolution of the company were design innovations. They were able to hire Paul Rand, the designer of the IBM logo and other great corporate logos, one of the early greats in graphic design. And then in '92, they won awards for, again, the presentation of that information, their newsletter format. And in '94, this industrial design award for the best binder. So these are all print and formal, form-based objects. And ultimately, all of those things have migrated online, again, to have this continuous and seamless experience from the consideration of the user and using information architecture and design to, again, deliver what we're going to call high-performance products. So as a designer myself, those of you who know me may remember this. Those of you who wouldn't know this. But the early part of my career, I was a graphic designer and had a graphic design firm that I changed into an internet strategy and product design firm in the early '90s. Got early on involved in design for the internet and was one of the early pioneers in developing experience design, user experience design strategies, practices, tools, processes. And so early on in that exploration, my husband, who is an architect, told me about Vitruvius and his complete theory of architecture, commodity, firmness, and delight. And upon that definition, I extrapolated my definition for user experience. So something needs to be useful before somebody cares about whether it's usable. But if it's useful and it's usable, the thing that really makes it a must-have is the desirability. Do I feel great when I use it? Does it give me everything I need? Do I come away feeling like I've accomplished the tasks or gotten the entertainment that I came there for? And so the framework or the complete theory of product transparency that we've been operating on, kind of standing on the shoulders of the user experience definition, is that effective product transparency is the combination of findability, understandability, and meaning. So that's the preamble to what we're going to talk about and show you today about this combination of addressing information anxiety with information architecture and how Sustainable Minds has been doing that and will continue to do that, and how we're doing that in our partnership with Vtrue. So Michael, do you want to do a quick overview of our agenda and introduce Vtrue?
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Heimsdorf. I work for Vtrue. We are the developers of MasterSpec. Today, we're going to talk a little bit, as Terry mentioned, about information anxiety and information architecture as it pertains to documentation for construction projects. Really interesting fact, actually, when doing a little bit of research that I don't think Terry mentioned. Richard Paul Wurman was also the guy who started the TED conference, and he's an architect who got 2 degrees from the University of Pennsylvania. So that's a little interesting nugget there. After we do a brief introduction here, we'll go into how the Sustainable Minds Transparency Catalog works, how architects and engineers can use it to communicate with manufacturers, and then vice versa with how manufacturers can use the catalog to communicate with architects and engineers. We'll talk a little bit about what we're doing together, both currently and then in the future. Terry's going to give a brief demo of the Sustainable Minds catalog and how it works. And then she'll talk about a success story with one of the users of the Sustainable Minds Transparency catalog. And then we'll hopefully have a brief amount of time for a short Q&A. Terry, can you go to the next slide? So I want to talk a little bit about Vtrue. We are formerly known as Arcom. We are the developer of MasterSpec and are a strategic partner of the AIA. There's only one other strategic partner, so we're more of the technology side of the AIA. The other strategic partner is Construct Connect, who does a lot of information analysis for the AIA. Vtrue has over 60 content professionals, along with other support staff who work to maintain MasterSpec and SpecText. We currently have 917 specification sections, which is roughly about 6,000 plus products. And it is the most widely used guide specification system in the United States. And we are, when we rebranded, one of the things we branded around was that we're committed to constructing a world where better building leads to better lives. So we're really using that as part of our mission, vision, and values, where before we were just more of a traditional publishing house, and kind of going along with that. And because of that mission statement, we're branching out a little bit beyond just the traditional publishing of MasterSpec, which we used to do, one part of which is partnering with Sustainable Minds and the Transparency Catalog. And the next slide, please, Terry.
Thanks, Michael. That's a great segue, because the fact that Vtrue rebranded and included that attribute of committed to making better buildings and ultimately lessening the impact on the environment was a perfect entree for us to get together and talk about how can we do that together, because our mission as a company, we are a mission-based company, has always been to operationalize environmental performance in mainstream product development and manufacturing to help manufacturers drive revenue and growth through greener product innovation. The company, Sustainable Minds, we have deep expertise in product transparency, methods, life cycle assessment, material ingredient analysis, deep roots in customer experience, information design, and cloud software design. And we are a 14025 program operator. But we've been in the LCA business since 2008, when we brought our very first product to market, which was the first cloud-based eco-design and LCA software tool for product development teams to be able to understand the environmental impacts of products in early stage design so that they could make better informed decisions about where they could make improvements across the life cycle of the product to bring greener products to market. My intent as the founder of Sustainable Minds has always been to have an impact, as big an impact as me and my organization can make. And I decided the way to do that was to provide knowledge and tools to manufacturers to be able to actually make better products and now market better products and create that demand, educate the market, create that demand, and get those higher performing products into the hands of everyone ultimately. And so to operationalize and bring things to the mainstream, we have partnered with organizations in the mainstream. And the way that I was able to start Sustainable Minds was with an investment from Autodesk. And that was huge to get Sustainable Minds into the market and into the mainstream. Our software is used all over the world in over 90 countries. And the excitement about this partnership with Vtrue is on the same par, that Vtrue's place in the market is that it is a mainstream tool, a mainstream brand. And now that capability together will allow us to bring product transparency to the mainstream. So to summarize about what Sustainable Minds does, we are a cloud software and services organization. And we, as a program operator, develop PCRs and deliver EPDs. We deliver LCA and material evaluation services. And the real innovative piece is our cloud-delivered transparency reporting tools and the training and the education that's provided along the way in all of those things to be able to operationalize these processes and these methods into manufacturers' organizations, again, in a seamless, integrated way. So everything is considered from the big picture. So you can see our timeline. When we got started working in product transparency in 2013, it was in response to LEED version 4, putting product transparency as kind of a cornerstone concept of LEED version 4, saying, hey, single attribute certifications are important, but if we're going to move forward and measure the impacts of building products and the material health of building products so that they add up to the impact and the material health of a building, then things have to be measured using the same metrics, the same methods across all the categories of building products. And so when we evaluated, again, we've been in the life cycle assessment space for many years already and are very familiar with ISO 14044 and 25 standards. We were very skeptical as to how quickly the adoption of these technical standards and methods would be in the marketplace, but even more so, just simply how would a regular architect, builder, or contractor ever use a Type 3 environmental declaration to make an informed purchase decision? So you can see that we started with, in 2013, creating our first product, our first transparency product, which we call a transparency report. It is a Type 3 environmental declaration. ISO 14025 says program operators can call their disclosures anything they want. EPD is a colloquialism. The actual term is Type 3 environmental declaration. The reason we called it a transparency report was to indicate that it's something different. It's in the cloud, it's 3 pages, and it integrates product transparency into product marketing so that everything somebody would need to make a decision about a product is all there in one place, and it's even actually all on the front page. So you can see that we kind of have broken down year over year the parts of the big challenge to make product transparency effective. Understandability and meaning. We spent several years looking at how to simplify and standardize standards and then the presentation of the information coming out of the standards programs and disclosures. And finally, in 2016, there were enough manufacturers, about 350 at the time, who had invested in one or both types of product transparency, where we said, let's start working on findability, which is when we launched the Transparency Catalog at Greenbuild in 2016. And then in 2017, we said, now it's time to work on making product transparency actionable. Because at the end of the day, product transparency, environmental performance, and material health are performance criteria, just like functional performance, cost, aesthetics, safety. People have to be able to consume that information as performance information to be able to make trade-off decisions between the other criteria that they use every day to make decisions. And ultimately, it's about marketing products. It's adding 2 new criteria to the messages that manufacturers put out in sales and marketing. And so now the Transparency Catalog could finally start to deliver functionality that makes product transparency into a viable lead generation solution, attracting those AECs who are interested in selecting and specifying those products and making it possible for them to learn about those products, select them, configure them for projects, pull the specification, contact the manufacturers for specification help, and if they're in a position of making a purchase decision, if they're a facility manager or a contractor, even reaching out for a quote request, all in one continuous user experience. So in our partnership with Vtrue, again, it's all about bringing product transparency to the mainstream and making it easy to get more visibility for the brands in the catalog, get product transparency information into manufacturers' specifications and make it easy to access those specifications. At the same time, a user is looking for products with transparency information, and ultimately to get products with transparency information to be selected and specified through master spec. And what's really exciting is, again, the market penetration that master spec represents and the construction spend that those users also represent. We think we have, collectively just a really great opportunity to accelerate bringing product transparency to the mainstream. So let's start to get a little bit more into the philosophy of how we're bringing product transparency to the mainstream. What we know for sure is that product transparency does build a credibly greener brand, but not by just producing disclosures. The huge growth of product transparency disclosure creation in 2017 is a testament to now most major manufacturers do have one or both types of transparency disclosures. It's no longer the differentiator that it once was. And so the value for producing those disclosures has gone beyond, yes, check the box, we have disclosures. The real value for manufacturers is to be able to demonstrate they understand what those disclosures mean, and to be able to demonstrate they know what they're doing. And when that happens, that's the kind of those are the kinds of stories and the kinds of information, otherwise known as marketing, that creates trust in a brand, and trust builds powerful brands, and powerful brands create preference and value for their companies. So the Transparency Catalog is designed to accelerate the adoption of product transparency into the mainstream by being an educational marketing and customer service solution, not just a product database. And I'm using air quotes when I say product database. Yes, there is a product database that sits behind the interface, and we are put in a category called product database. But what I'm going to show and share with you today is that the catalog is expressly designed to offer solutions and tools and education all built into one place, and does not provide the traditional experience of a database, which when you look at a database, it has a search field, you put in a term, and off you go. One big meta filter already applied to the catalog is that it's only the brands and only their products that have transparency information, either environmental product declarations or one or more kinds of material ingredient disclosures. So we decided to really kind of support the green building rating systems, and LEED being the first to say, look, transparency really is the new way to measure green. And all of the manufacturers, for the most part, who have invested in product transparency were also the manufacturers who already got the single attribute certifications and ratings for the categories that they're in, which is why they've invested in transparency. It is the next bar. And so part of designing a great user experience is to really be very strict about how simple can we make this while still providing a powerful and useful user experience. So we spend just as much time thinking about what not to put into the catalog as what to put into it. And that was a big decision up front, that we only want manufacturers to put in products with transparency information, and just those attributes that describe those disclosures. And you'll see the design promotes sending the user through the catalog back to the manufacturer's website, where manufacturers want to do business with people there. That's why they have websites. So it's a win-win, because we're passing users through to the manufacturer's website, and specifically not having to manage a lot of content, a lot of manufacturers' content in a separate location, which really is a challenge for manufacturers in terms of resources. And the last point I'm going to make is that our business model is also pretty specific, and part of the way we do business, because we are a cloud software and services company, we sell annual subscriptions. So our software, our LCA and EcoDesign software, people pay annual subscriptions. It's just like Autodesk Revit and all of their cloud solutions. It's just like MasterSpec. People pay an annual subscription and you get products and services. Our business model is not to monetize data, either user data or analytics, which is another kind of business model. It's just not ours. We're a software company. We sell subscriptions. And we also focus very clearly on showing the manufacturers how to get a measurable ROI on their product transparency investments. So One of the other things that's pretty unique about our strategy and at the highest level of the architecture is the focus on brands. That's the top level sort. So it's all the brands who have products with transparency information. And again, to create a really simple user experience, we wanted people to come to the catalog and literally in a glance see all the brands that have invested in product transparency, and therefore we want to help them be rewarded for that. We also felt it was pretty important for people to see how many manufacturers had invested, because there's kind of this lingering suspicion in the AEC industry that there aren't enough products with transparency information. But you'll see in a minute that's actually not true at all. There are plenty of products, and there are plenty of manufacturers who've gotten started. And so that's our goal, is to feature the big brands next to the small brands, help you find brands you've never heard of. And it does mirror the way people start to look for products when they start doing research early on. They think about the brands that they like. And the research clearly shows that in early stage product selection, AECs will go to a manufacturer's website first, looking for products to include in a project. So the catalog is designed for both sets of constituents, as I mentioned earlier, to address the challenges that both are facing. So for manufacturers, it's designed to save your marketing, sales, support, and training organizations a lot of time and money. It's designed to improve the effectiveness of their efforts, not just saving time, but actually make them better at what they're doing, and then deliver a measurable ROI. For building professionals, it's designed to help them find all the brands and all their products in one place, understand what those disclosures mean and how to use them to earn rating system credits, learn what a manufacturer is doing to improve, be able to share feedback both with manufacturers and with their own peers and organizations. So that, again, virtuous cycle, the loop. We're going to talk about closing the loop just in a little bit, and rewarding manufacturers for providing this transparency information. And when all of this happens, we collectively will create the change that we're all working to create, which is to create a built environment that has less impact on the natural environment and human health. So I'm going to walk through the rest of the information architecture of the catalog and talk about the different information solutions that are built in. So I'm going to talk about first how we build the catalog, how we build and maintain it. And it starts from this set of green building rating systems. There's 5 of them who offer credits for environmental performance disclosures and or for material ingredient disclosures. Some offer both types of credits, some only offer one. But the real point to make here is that AECs aren't looking for disclosures. They're looking for products with disclosures. So we ask manufacturers, have you made it easy for people to find all of your products with disclosures? And then what will they learn about you as a manufacturer and your products when they find those products with disclosures? So to continue to populate the catalog and make sure that all of the brands who have invested in product transparency are there in the catalog, our technical experts, Sustainable Minds, continually monitor the green building rating systems that we just looked at that list before, and all of the program operators and the material disclosure rating systems and disclosure programs. They all have databases. Manufacturers are participating in creating disclosures in one or more of those programs. So there's quite a lot to monitor, but we that's what we're expert in, and that's how we built the catalog and how we continue to maintain the catalog to make sure things are categorized and organized correctly, and that everyone actually is included. So at the end of 2017, we created our 2017 trend report so that we could gauge the growth of product transparency in 2017. And based on our data collection period of January 1st to the end of December, this is what we were able to account for, that 24 of the 34 active CSI master format divisions have manufacturers who were creating one or more types of transparency disclosures. And the grand total of transparency disclosures that were created or valid during 2017 is about 9,600 disclosures. And that represents 961 brands. That's what we had in the catalog by the end of December. So big increase. We launched the catalog with 350 brands, big increase by the end of December. So we can count all of those things. Those things are countable. What is not countable is the number of products that those disclosures represent. And pretty much everyone who's on this call has been involved in creating product transparency disclosures. And so you know that a disclosure can for sure represent one product, but it often represents more, 10, 20, 50, 100. We've even done HPDs, supported a manufacturer in creating HPDs where there were over 1,200 products represented in one single disclosure. So there's really no clear indication for AECs or manufacturers' reps to necessarily know which products and all the SKUs that are covered by a particular disclosure. So we did a quick back of envelope calculation to try to figure out how many products with transparency disclosures are there in the marketplace. And so again, just doing from a one-to-one correlation to, let's say averaging it out at 100 products per disclosure, we know certainly it's somewhere in the middle. There are at least almost 10,000 products with disclosures. Probably it's more like 50,000, but there could be 1 million products with disclosures. And the transparency catalog is the only solution to this problem in the way that we've architected the way manufacturers can display all of their products with transparency information. So you can see that at the heart of this standard listing is a table that allows the manufacturer to organize their products by CSI master format division. We append the brand name that the manufacturer uses in that division so that the user knows what the manufacturer calls their products in that division. And then vertically, the manufacturer can correlate each type of disclosure that they have for that product. And the user can look at one section at a time, or the user can click the open, close all, and in a glance see every product the manufacturer has with transparency information, which types of disclosures, the validity dates, some information about the results. And when the user clicks here, these links take the user to the manufacturer's website, where they can learn everything the manufacturer wants them to know about those products. But here in the listing, they're able to see in a glance all the products with transparency disclosures and get direct access to those disclosures in a simple click. So our research objectives, you go back to our timeline and you saw how we were kind of working on different slices of product transparency year over year. In 2018, our research objectives, and that translated to the functionality that we deliver, have to do with the questions that we asked you when you registered, and we're going to ask you again when you leave. Is it easy to find all your company's products with transparency information? Do you spend a lot of time educating your reps and responding to requests? And can your reps help get these products into the spec? This is going to be an ongoing set of challenges that we'll continue to work with manufacturers on to continue to develop and deliver functionality that addresses those issues. I'm sharing with you the learning objectives, our research agenda on the AEC side. And what you're seeing here are is the attendance report, one of the attendance reports from a webinar that Sustainable Minds and Vtrue have done, where we're trying to figure out what really are the greatest challenges for AECs today in specifying products with transparency information. And we also, try to get a little bit of a litmus test on how many people come to a webinar and they've already seen the catalog and their relative assessment of its value, and how many, once they've learned a little bit about the catalog, will say that, yes, this is going to be useful, I'm going to use it. So we kind of look at who comes in knowing and who says later, yes, now that I understand this, I'm gonna use it. But these are the pieces that we're really focused on. It turns out a lot of people think that the inability to find products with transparency information is one of the challenges, or the greatest challenges, as to why those products aren't being selected and specified. Yes, it turns out that is, of course, still a challenge, but it also turns out that equally it is 50-50, and we have a lot of data points on this now, that the other greatest challenge to selecting products with transparency information is difficult to understand what the disclosures mean to inform decisions. That is equally a problem as to the ability to find products with transparency information. So the good news here is now people are realizing, oh, great, I can come here to the transparency catalog and find all of the products from these manufacturers with transparency information in a glance. Great, that's easy. And so, our challenge is to continue to work on not only making the information in the disclosures understandable, but the last two questions have to do with are AECs telling manufacturers what they need to be able to make those decisions, and then are they telling manufacturers how they're using the information in the disclosure to make those decisions. And it turns out, for the most part, some AEC firms do explain to manufacturers their criteria for selection, but really none of them are able to explain or try to how the information in the disclosure is actually used to make a decision. So these are some things that really need to get worked on in a big way, and there are a lot of people working on that topic. So just a quick overview of this is our standard listing. Again, you saw the architecture of the table in the center of the listing, but it's simple, but there's some powerful tools built in. A lot of links back to the manufacturer's website, not only the logo, but all the product links. There's a contact link. There can be a phone number. That contact link can go to an email or a form. More information the manufacturer can provide about any other category-specific certifications, what else they're doing, their commitment to transparency or making sustainable products. What you can't see when you go to a listing is that each one has its own Google Analytics tag, the manufacturer's own Google Analytics tag, so the manufacturer can watch and track usage of the listing, because we're not in the business. It's not part of our business model to sell analytics. It's just one of the services that, or piece of the functionality that's offered in the annual subscription. Manufacturers can get that information from their own Google Analytics and track it like they would any other web page and from any of the websites they already manage. And these tools right here are really fun and cool, and I encourage you to go try them. This enables both the manufacturer and the sales reps and social media people to, in a click, send people the link to the listing, let people know all their products are there. It takes all the time and worry out of responding to customer requests, literally a click. All these tools are customized for the brand. You can tweet the link with the graphic, the same thing with LinkedIn and Facebook. Really powerful communication tools that, again, because there's no login, anybody can use. So an architect who might find a great brand who has products that solve a particular need, they can click the share link, send an email to their team. Hey, check out this particular brand. It's got all the products that we need. All the transparency information is right there. Go check it out. Now, one of the things that we have done recently, because of the research that we're doing, and we can do simple things, it's about being simple, is we've added this let us know link to all of the listings now to encourage people to let the manufacturer know when they select or specify any of these products. And we've been working with the manufacturers to encourage them to have this let us know link go to a person, an actual person. In many instances, the contact us will also go to a person's email, but it will also go to a contact form on a manufacturer's website. This personal link to an email address is pretty powerful, is it lets somebody know that there is a person on the other end who really does want to hear from them. And this now becomes part of the training when we launch a listing and do some training with people in the manufacturer's organization about making sure that when they use this listing, either in a lunch and learn or on a sales call or responding to a request, that they indicate, hey, let us know. It's easy. You click right there. So some of the other tools that are built in are these bidirectional links. So making it easy to find the specifications for the products that the manufacturer has transparency information for. And so someone can come to the free specs on the product master spec site and go to the catalog. And same thing from the catalog, the user can go to the free specification site. Even further, Vtrue has been working on and is adding to the product master specs language in 2 sections to indicate the product transparency work that the manufacturer has done, get that into the spec to make it then even more difficult for a contractor or someone else to find an or equivalent because that product transparency, that disclosure information, and the level of results is also now there in the spec. So I want to just talk a little bit about, I think, the most important information architecture and information design in the catalog. And it's a lot like the Access travel guides, in as much as we've created standard templates that are flexible, that can be utilized to express each manufacturer's brand, but deliver information in a standardized and consistent way for users to be able to find those products, understand what the manufacturer is doing to improve, written in language that is understandable by non-technical readers, all in one place. And ultimately, these tools, because they have been developed over a long period of time and they've been tested, they are highly effective in people using them and acquiring that information and ultimately making those selection decisions. I'm going to show you 2 quick case studies as a testament to that. And I'm going to start with Toto. Toto has been a strategic customer of Sustainable Minds. Toto worked with us in 2013 to develop the transparency report. Again, our brand of EPD in the cloud, 3 pages. And so over time, Toto had started with a small number of products in their showroom. Now they have, I think, about 35 products in their showroom. And they've created material health overviews that are integrated into the transparency report. So a user can find both the environmental and the material information all in one place with interpretation. What does it mean? What's the manufacturer doing to get this level of disclosure, and making the results understandable? I want to reinforce again that all these information tools are designed to drive people back to the manufacturer's website for more information or more interaction. And the big idea is that no matter where a user goes, whether it's to a manufacturer's website or to the catalog, they're going to find easily all the manufacturer's products with transparency information. And this diagram, this architecture, is true of the standard listing as well. So I want to show you some stats. When we launched Toto Showroom, it looked like this back in 2014. And because this is a page, a static page, which has other static pages attached to it, what we track and the most important metrics are page views. How many page views have there been of this content? And so what it shows you is that in 23 months, there was over 25,000 page views of this content. That's a lot of page views, both coming through the catalog and some through their website as well. Show you that from the day that we launched the catalog, October 1st, 2016, through towards the end of December when we pulled these stats. So this is already practically 5 months ago, 4.5 months ago. 4,500 page views just of this page alone, which is a pretty good indication that people are really interested in content, because what I'll show you is that in that same period of time, there were over 17,000 page views of the showroom and the transparency reports and the material health overviews, which again, statistically shows people need and want content that makes this information understandable and meaningful. This gives you some indication of, from the day that we launched the catalog in 2016 through that 14-month period, you can see the increase in page views and usage over that period of time. The second half of that period of time had double the amount of content consumption as the first 6 months, and that trend is ongoing in terms of consumption. So now if we talk about the Knopf Showroom, which we launched in November at Greenbuild in 2017, and have added this lead generation module that allows a user to come find products, actually filter products by application, go to a transparency report, a material health overview, select that product, start a project, be able to configure each of those products for a project, take notes, save it in a project library, collaborate with teams, download all the documentation in one zip file for that project for sharing with customers, but as well as for project submission. And most importantly, provides the ability for that user to contact the manufacturer, in this case Knopf, for either specification help or to request a quote. And when they request a quote, all of the products they've selected and all the configuration and the amounts and the questions all go with the quote request. So now when that arrives at the manufacturer, it gets routed to the right distributor, the right sales rep, the right partner to fulfill, to continue to fulfill that quote request and get that get that project through the pipeline. Most importantly, it turns lead gen on its ear, because we're not passing leads to manufacturers because we know about projects, and we're not telling them which firms people from which firms are going to their sites. This is all about making it easy to find products, these high performance products that people want, give them the ability to learn what makes these products great, and then give them the tools to be able to select them and raise their hands, reach out to the manufacturer when they want to engage. And what it does is it delivers high quality leads to a manufacturer, not at the top of the pipeline, but well into that sell cycle. We've done a number of trainings, and we're actually, this is ongoing at Knopf, but just wanted to share some of the feedback from the salespeople, both from a response to how great a learning and teaching tool it is, but how great a sales tool it is. Literally saying, it's like an elevator speech on steroids. It makes that sales process significantly more efficient, but also effective, because now they're saying what you, the people who created the transparency information and the marketers, need them to say and want them to say. So, here's the testament. In the time since the Knopf Showroom launched, there's been over 14,000 page views of this content. That is unbelievable, I think, to me, because it continues to show people want content. They want stuff that helps them make better informed decisions. And it continues to be borne out. Michael and I want to wrap with this last section about business models driving product development. And I had mentioned earlier that we don't call ourselves a product database, but Sustainable Minds Transparency Catalog gets put into the category of product databases. And we often are asked, how are you the same or different? What are we going to be able to get of value with Sustainable Minds? And I really want to encourage manufacturers to think about your marketing plan as an and. You're going to do you already do trade shows. You might buy print. You might produce videos. You might produce training stuff. You're going to buy specifications. You are going to put your products into places where people that you care about will find them. I strongly encourage that to be an and, not an or. Because if we are all about helping people find products and then help them make better informed decisions, you're going to want those products to be in all the places where the people you care about are going to go. But you are still going to have to, as you all do, evaluate what's going to be, the biggest bang for the buck. So we put together this set of criteria to help you make that decision. And so these are, some of the criteria to consider. So who's the tool or the platform been designed for? Who uses it? Who else is there? What does it do? Who's in the business, the company that runs it? What expertise do they have? What content types and usage scenarios does it support that leads into customer experience? This question about right at the beginning, does the user have to log in or not? What do they log in for if they have to? How are you measuring results and ROI? And at the end of the day, how do people choose the tools that they use? It's not only how do you manufacturer choose the tools that you use, but how do AECs also choose the tools that they use? And what it comes down to is, what do people believe about the brand? And what's the user experience? People aren't only ever going to use one tool. They may have a favorite, but depending on a particular task, they may find that the tools in one solution are better for one thing versus the tools in another are better for something else. But to have some more insight as to why certain companies build solutions a certain way, you have to understand the business model, and that will start to give you a lot of insight into how to prioritize and make some of these decisions. So, one of the things that connected Vtrue and Sustainable Minds from the get-go is that we share a common business model. And in the last month or so since the Facebook implosion happened, Jim, the CEO from Vtrue, spoke out about a business model that we share. And Michael had to jump out because he's between flights and his flights got screwed up. But when he presented this yesterday, he made the point that this has actually been on their mind prior to the Facebook explosion, because they get asked all the time, hey, are you going to sell us user data? Are you going to sell us leads? And both Sustainable Minds and Vtrue are deeply committed to that is just not our business model. We sell subscriptions to useful tools, and no, we don't monetize data. It's not a bad business model. It's just not the business model that we choose to use. So when you manufacturer go and do your comparative assessment, I invite you to use those criteria and make a spreadsheet. Here I've started, here's 3 platforms that most of you who are on the call have at least heard of. You're probably in more than one of them, particularly if you're a UL customer. Your disclosures are going to be there, which is how it should be. But I want to point out, each of these businesses are really different. We sell subscriptions and services. There's no login. Spot sells certifications. They also sell ads and sponsored content, and they'll sell more product pages. And Giga, their business model is to monetize data, usage data, manufacturers' data. They'll sell downloadable databases. And so each has a different kind of positioning message. And it's for you to decide, is business model important to the companies that you choose to do business with? And then what other attributes are important? Now, quick sneak peek, next quarter, we will be adding filtering to the catalog. You're going to really, I think, be pretty excited about how we display the results, prioritizing where you're going to be able to find the best content to help you make decisions. The main feature of the catalog front page will never be the search input field. The focus will still always be on brands. And, to summarize and wrap up, we will continue to do what we can to diminish the information anxiety that's being caused by product transparency through our continued efforts to use information architecture and design to deliver the best user experience that will bring your products with product transparency information to the mainstream and ultimately make tools that allow users to take action to select and specify your products to get them into their high-performance buildings. So that's the end of the webinar today. We thank you for hanging out with us till the end. Questions that we didn't touch on during the presentation will definitely get followed up with. There are a few questions in the exit on the way out that I invite you to give us your responses to. They're always very helpful. And I want to wish you all a great day and Go out there and make even more and better high performance products. Take care.